Good afternoon and welcome to Wired Word Live. I'm Rob and we have Deb, Eric, and Pastor Corey with us. Pastor Eric and Pastor Corey with us to talk about today's topic from Wired Word, which is first, do no harm. It is not a simple practice or principle during a pandemic. Welcome everybody. Pastor Eric, I'll let you start us out.
All right. Welcome back once again to another live feed, online feed of our Wired Word Bible study. Before we get started into this, I just wanted to share, I got a phone call on Saturday. And one of the things that's going on with this pandemic is people are being stuck in their houses, and they're not able to get out, and it's increasing anxiety and stress. If you are feeling that anxiety and stress, I cannot stress to you enough, you need to talk to somebody, even if it is just getting on the phone and calling. And if you have nobody you feel like you can call, please call me. I received a phone call on Saturday of a young lady. It's a member of our congregation. Her son, he lives up in Traverse City, and his girlfriend's daughter ended up committing suicide. Apparently the stress of everything that's going on got to be too much for her. And we're hearing more and more of this. I read an article the other day where a street in Muskegon has 3 people in 1 week that have all committed suicide. So I can't, like I said, stress enough. If there's ever a time when you feel like it's beginning to be too much, please just give somebody a call, talk to somebody. I've been where you're at. I've been in your shoes. I've had that where I've felt like rock bottom. And I please just do something. That's all I can say. Now to get into this Wire Word study, as Rob said, the title of it is First, Do No Harm is Not a Simple Principle During a Pandemic. Given the death and harm caused by COVID-19, there is a natural tendency among many to pin hope on any treatment that has even a possibility of helping in the fight against the virus, as well as to count on a vaccine against the disease being developed soon. As an example, consider the rhetoric around the anti-malaria drug hydroxychloroquine. I don't know if I said that right. This past March, a study at the Institut Hospitalier Universitaire Mediterranean Infection in France found that treatment with hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin together was associated with improvement in all but 1 patient already near death out of 80 patients treated, 78 of whom had recovered. Physicians in other countries have reported similar findings. These drugs have a history of use over 6 decades. Their main side effects and drug interactions are well known. Some medical professionals and researchers recommend their use, especially in severe cases when what have you got to lose becomes the dominant rationale. Even so, there is no conclusive evidence that it always will help against the current coronavirus. At the same time, some others in the scientific community, including Dr. James Phillips, professor of emergency medicine at George Washington University Hospital, said Americans could be risking their health if they took a drug for a condition for which it had not been tested. A vaccine is a different approach to the pandemic. A vaccine is not a cure after one has the disease, but rather an antigen administered to produce or highly increase immunity to the disease and thus prevent people from getting it in the first place. According to the World Health Organization, there are currently some 40 possible vaccines against COVID-19 in development. The Massachusetts-based firm Moderna, for example, started testing their vaccine on humans in March. But because of the standard protocols, it normally takes years of testings and studies before vaccines are declared safe for widespread usage. Some pathogens actually burn out before the appropriate vaccine is released. Vaccine researchers say that rushing the process is risky and could result in harm to recipients, including something known as enhancement, where a vaccine actually weakens a person's response to a virus when they contract it. Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease and the top infectious disease advisor to the White House, said it could take 12 to 18 months for such a vaccine to be developed. And some medical experts say even that timeline is overly optimistic. Because of the obvious urgent need for a vaccine against COVID-19, the Food and Drug Administration, the agency charged with ensuring the safety and efficiency of drugs used in the United States, has indicated that it will be flexible to accommodate approval for a workable vaccine in this case. But even so, it's unclear when or even if a vaccine for the coronavirus will be available. Gary Kobinger, a virologist at Canada's Laval University, told New Science magazine, "We could have a vaccine in 3 weeks, but we can't guarantee its safety or efficiency." While at least one other vaccine inventor said it might not even be possible to create the needed vaccine. If Kobinger is right, many people whose lives are disrupted by the efforts to stop the spread of the pandemic might willingly try a hastily developed vaccine right now. And regarding untested medications, some of those with the most severe cases of COVID-19 and facing possible death might take them based on a "what have I got to lose" attitude. But is using untested drugs and vaccines the right move right now? Or is failing to use these drugs and vaccines due to the lack of prior exhaustive testing the right move right now? Each course of action has risks, and none are certain. Applying the news story. The concerns about possible harm from taking medications not tested for the virus and using vaccines not fully vetted would seem to parallel the first do no harm principle that many assume is the Hippocratic oath physicians take. On the other hand, the French IHU study specifically cites the Hippocratic oath as a reason for not withholding the treatment from some. Withholding a treatment, they would say, would do harm. Either way, the exact phrase, "first do no harm," is not in the Hippocratic Oath. It comes from another word of the ancient Greek physician Hippocrates called "of the epidemics." There, the statement reads, "The physician must have two special objects in view with regard to disease, namely, to do good or to do no harm." The Hippocratic Oath does contain a different statement of do no harm principle, however. "I will follow that system of regimen which, according to my ability and judgment, I consider for the benefit of my patients, and abstain from whatever is deleterious and mischievous." We have also learned that while some medical schools ask their graduates to abide by the Hippocratic Oath, others use a different pledge, and some use none at all. What's more, sometimes a doctor might need to do some harm, such as amputation, but with the goal to save a patient's life, and thus overall do that patient good. Dr. Robert H. Schmierling, senior faculty editor of Harvard Health Publishing, said that the modern interpretation of the first do no harm principle is doctors should help their patients as much as they can by recommending tests or treatments for which the potential benefits outweigh the risks of harm. Nonetheless, shorthanding Schmierling's definition to do no harm is a useful way to crystallize decisions about when to recommend the use of unproven drugs and vaccines in desperate times. While it is not our intention in this installment of the Wired Word to offer an opinion on such medical decisions, we are taking this opportunity to examine the religious and spiritual applications of first, do no harm. So that brings us to the big questions. Big question number one. In terms of the practice of our Christian faith, should first do no harm be thought of as a bare minimum or as the main thing? And explain your answer.
Before we get started into discussion, I want to remind everybody that is watching us live on either Facebook or YouTube. We welcome you to bring in your comments, and so just post a comment on the Facebook feed or on the YouTube feed, and it'll pop up here, and we can incorporate that into our discussion and whatnot, so you guys can participate and help guide us in the discussion. So,
all right. So, anybody wants to jump in? for the first question. In terms of the practice of our Christian faith, should first do no harm be thought of as a bare minimum or as the main thing?
I'm not sure I necessarily completely agree with first do no harm. I mean, even as in the text that we're reading there and stuff, the one oath that they talked about was do good or do no harm. So my thought is looking at, the greater good and what we're trying to do. And, sometimes, unintentionally, we may have to do harm in order to pursue the good in things. So I don't think it's something that we should look at, well, it could do harm, so we're not going to do anything, which in turn could end up being worse in the end.
Yeah, you got to think like they said, a lot of these vaccines that they have to come out with right now, or these drugs to try to combat against the COVID, this is all untested stuff. And when we're in a situation such as we are in now, the only way that they can find out whether it's going to work is to have people to do it on.
Somebody's got to be first.
Somebody's got to be first to find out whether it's good or harm.
Well,
so yeah,
I think all things have to have good intentions.
Yeah.
Is the key, is what I look at. When I read that, like, what is it telling me there? It's telling me I need to have an understanding that my intent is not to do harm, even though there may be harm in that situation. I think too many times we start to think about, the do no harm aspect. But again, like Rob said, to do good, you also have to do good or to do no harm, So I think we get caught up sometimes in that terminology of, is it the minimum or the main thing? I mean, obviously the main thing in this COVID-19 is saving lives. So if it's saving lives, do no harm, I'm not sure is the main thing myself personally.
And if these new drugs can save lives, then maybe it's a thing that we need to try. But in terms of our Christian faith, are they asking us about just these other drugs or what we should be doing ourselves? Because if
exactly.
it's just what we should be doing ourselves, I do think we should try to do no harm before anything else.
I would, Deb, I'd agree with you on that. If it's a Christian faith wise, I 100% agree. We shouldn't be doing any harm within this, and I think Eric and I can attest to as pastors, the whole do no harm is sometimes hard because we aren't again goes back to the very nature of to do good or do no harm. We tend to try to do good versus do harm, but sometimes our actions speak of harm, but they're meant to be good. So I don't know. That's how I feel, Eric, as a pastor. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah. And I kept while I'm reading this, of course, all of us are. Corey's a pastor of a Wesleyan church, and we're from the United Methodist Church, but we're all Wesleyan followers, and that's one of John Wesley's main points putting out there: do no harm, do good, love God. So his three main simple rules of the Christian faith, of the Methodist faith, is just that: do no harm, do good, and love God. So, but the do no harm always comes first. But yeah, like you said, Corey, at the time we always wanting to do good. We're always wanting people to be in a good place and try to help them to a good place. But sometimes the tactics we use could possibly be harmful.
That leads us well into the next question. Number 2, in teaching children to be good, how should we deal with the fact that the not so good stuff often seems more interesting and alluring? So there's where the intentions come in. And how do you deal with that reality yourself? Where's the thrill in being good?
I honestly think where the thrill in being good versus it talks about the interesting and alluring and stuff. A lot of that has to do with perspective, and as you're raising kids, if you are teaching them and showing them the good and the rewards of being good, and helping others and those types of things and stuff, then that becomes interesting and alluring.
Good point.
So I think it's a matter of, especially with upbringing and bringing up, kids in a Christian-based home and stuff, is understanding how to give the perspective of being good and how that is, rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you look at TV these days, of course, anything that's out there, TV, radio, songs, you name it, it's kind of hard when they are constantly promoting the sinful stuff as being good and alluring. I mean, they make it very entertaining, very fun, and it catches all of us. Especially if you're sitting in front of your TV for too long, you're gonna catch yourself thinking, "Hey, that would be a good thing. We'll do that." And it may not be all that good to do. So, like you said, Rob, we need to make sure that first we're doing it at home and trying to reward the kids for doing the good behaviors and showing them that it's fun. I just read an article the other day, and it was they were talking about the jobs out there, rating the jobs from 1 to 10, the top 10 jobs out there who had the most, who were happiest in their work and what they did. And I found it interesting because I hear so often about how many pastors were losing in today's society with they're bailing away from Christianity, but the pastor was the number one as being the people who were the most happiest. And that's because, I mean, I don't know, I guess we try to me, I guess, for one, is the lure of money is not a big thing for me, but helping people and getting people to see Christ is what, to me, and I've been blessed to see a lot of people come to Christ, and that's just, to me, is just made my life complete. So that Christian teaching has carried into, like I said, of doing that good, of trying to bring that to light and be more alluring. To me, that's the most alluring thing. It's just seeing people's happiness and seeing people coming to that joy of knowing who Christ is in their life.
I think my opinion on, I think why pastors are on the top of the list of the happiest people as far as their employment goes is because most people don't go into pastoral work unless they have a passion for it. And if you're doing something that you're passionate about, the rest of those things don't matter. I mean, it's, as long as you're able to make ends meet and you're able to live it, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, type thing. And that's, I look at that from my perspective and my job, and stuff is, yes, I'm a salesperson, but I don't look at it as a salesperson. I'm going out and educating people and teaching them about the benefits of what my company does and things. I'm very passionate about what I do and stuff. And I love every minute of it because I'm putting that passion into it. And, same thing with, if you can instill that into your children when you're teaching them is to be passionate about the good things and, and whatnot, then I think they'll grow up, having that passion in their lives.
A lot of it is what they see. What do they see? Like, how are you portraying? How are you walking? How are you talking? Sunday I talked about how Satan attacks. He attacks us at those vulnerable spots. And if we're trying to, in the thrill of being good or the thrill of, teaching your children to be good, we got to watch what we say and do, because kids are like sponges. They just, love it. We all know that as parents, that kids, they levitate to whatever it is, and it might be the good, so you want them to sponge up the good stuff. I always say, I use the analogy a lot of times like toothpaste. Once you squeeze it out of that toothpaste container, I've done analogy with kids and youth. Try to get that back in that container. You can't, because you've already squeezed the stuff out. You've already squeezed what you set out. And so so that not so good stuff got squeezed out of that bottle versus, maybe the good stuff. And I think that, you're absolutely correct, Rob. I think as a pastor and a leader, or even any job you're at, in job, coin the word job, because I think I don't like the word job, period. Like Debbie's, her job may be administrative assistant to Eric, but that's a calling, in a sense. It may, she may not do it. I don't think she'd do it. We all know Eric, so we know that she's got to
definitely not the money.
but the fact that we do what we do because we're so blessed with what we do. because deep down inside, Eric and I can tell you, being a pastor has a lot of stress to it. Being a pastor is a lot, there is a lot more stress than people see, but it's the fact that we understand that we work for God. He's my boss, that's how I coined it. But God is in control. So when God is leading, he's leading me to do the things, to say the things, to teach the right way, to understand and grow. But it's kind of like, to me, learning as a kid, you got to learn to walk, you got to fall down. I think sometimes there is a thrill to seeing, the good things happen, but within that thrill, also seeing the kid fall down because that wasn't good, but they're learning. I think sometimes we also want to, I don't want to say helicopter, we want to hover over. A lot of times we don't want to do too much of the teaching, in the sense of not letting them stumble for a minute and realize, oh, I did something wrong, or, oh, that wasn't good. We as parents, sometimes some parents want to teach them all good, and not let them stumble for a moment, and I'm not saying that's either the right or wrong way either, but that's how I look at it. I came out all right, apparently. I stumbled quite often growing up, but God called me to be a pastor, and I'm like you, Rob. I said, I don't know. I didn't want it, but God, you showed it, so I got to listen. I got to be obedient. I think that's the biggest thing is within it all, is listening, to being obedient.
Number 4, if do no harm should come first, spiritually speaking, what, if anything, should... Oh, I skipped one. Number 3.
I was gonna say.
Suppose someone tells you that a married couple is going through a rough patch in their relationship. What would be a good way to apply first do no harm principle to that information? Well, first of all, don't repeat it.
Amen.
I think that's one of the things that we sometimes do the most harm in, is repeating things, thinking we're just, having a conversation. Repeating things that other people have told us is kind of an important of do no harm, because there can be a lot more to the story than what you know.
The gossip.
Rumors are toxic.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the thing is I've noticed greatly in people over the years that if you don't get fed the whole story, you start filling in those gaps. Mm-hmm. So, and that's the problem that most people do, is they hear bits and pieces of the story. That's one of the reasons why we have so much issues going on right now with this whole pandemic issue, is because the fact we're only getting bits and pieces of the story, going back and forth from both sides. And we as humans are trying to fill in those blanks with our own. We're trying to connect the dots. But we're skipping 2, going right from 1 to 3, and we're missing the whole point of what probably is really there. So we tend to do that quite a bit when we try to gossip. That's one reason why we're not supposed to gossip.
Well, and the other thing too, to think about something in this particular context, just like, with the disease, with COVID and stuff, if you do nothing, that could cause harm. With this, if you did nothing, that could potentially be causing harm as well, if you just let it go. If you find out that somebody is going through a rough patch or having problems, personally, I think, addressing it, personally, or getting somebody else involved that maybe can help out. Like if I heard something about somebody within our congregation or something, me bringing Pastor Eric into that or something could be a benefit. So, it's not necessarily just completely shut up and ignore it type thing, but, because if you do that, that could also do harm, because that person could be reaching out to you, looking for help. And right. if you do nothing with it.
And that's the thing. I've had people come to me on many occasions who have wanted to talk about certain things. And I always make sure to let them know, listen, if what you're looking for is spiritual guidance, that's what I'm here for. I'm not licensed to do anything else but. And if it happens to get beyond my expertise, then thankfully I know of a few numbers and a few different people, and I will ask you for permission if we can extend our conversation, include them into future conversations, because you're stepping beyond my capabilities. So that's something we definitely have to do. But we have a lot of people out there who want to try to play, psychologists and help people out, thinking I can be the hero here.
Well, that's where you're saying the first do no harm principle is, hey, I can do the best I can do to reach out as far in the faith side of it. And then from there, let me, if you're willing to, let me walk along with this. because I think, yeah, too many times, we do see a lot of the gossip that comes out of this question. I think a lot of times because, even we tell our best friend, let's be honest, we tell our best friend, I'm struggling with something. Sometimes our best friend, did you hear that, Corey and Linda are going through troubles? Oh, really? Yeah. I'm not, but you got to, there's got to be, even in the sense of when we're looking at this conversation or this topic question, there's got to be a confidential piece to that. We shouldn't be going out and saying, you did this and you did that. It should literally be, hey, let's walk together. Because especially in this time right now, think about the people that are not working right now, the people that are in their homes, the families that are in their homes, they're seeing each other. I mean, my wife and I are seeing each other more often. My son is seeing me. I mean, there's more time we're spending. So now that there's more time we're spending, we're starting to see the flaws that we have in each other that we got to work on, that people got to work on. And that's where some of our families, our friends might be reaching out to us as pastors and leaders in the coming months, because they're dealing with what they dealt with for the last, 40 days of being stuck together, versus it should be 40 of the greatest days stuck together, because we're able to work together, we're grow together, learn. There should be the do no harm principles right in there. So I think that it really comes down to, honestly, more than anything, it's listening, just straight listening. I think I find myself, I talk too much. And sometimes when I talk too much, I'm not listening enough to what somebody else is saying. So the first thing for me would be the principal aspect would listen.
Absolutely. All right. Our next question.
By the way.
What's that?
I never said that, by the way. That
Okay.
Corey talks too much.
Our next question here is, if do no harm should come first to spiritually speaking, what, if anything, should come right on its heels as a second?
Again, like I said, going back to what we've been taught in the Wesleyan faith is do no harm, do good. Do good is right there on the heels. And then, of course, the never-ending love God.
Yeah, I think that's true too. Do good, it should be next.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, because even if the do no harm turns to be harm, it's doing good afterwards. You're gonna help someone, hopefully in some way, shape, or form. Like I said, even if it is all of a sudden you overstep your boundaries and you give them information you probably shouldn't have been giving them, then it is, like I said, it's always good to maybe take a step back and then realize your mistake and then try to figure out any way to do that good to help that individual.
We'll go on to number 5. I don't think there's much else we can say about 4. If we do no harm, we should be doing good, right?
Like I said, we're all Wesleyans, and we've all had that do no harm, do good, love God debate, in our heads. So, right. Like I said, I was waiting through the whole article for them to mention that, and they never did.
Number 5, in all too many cases, do no harm doesn't help. Both action and lack of action may potentially do harm, while at the same time, each may provide a benefit. After a crisis or event in which you sought to do no harm, how do you measure whether your response was the right one or rather one you wish you hadn't tried? How does our knowledge that God will forgive our mistakes help us in situations where a decision is required and no decision looks completely risk-free of harm? Those are really, really tough things. I have things going on in my life that only a couple of people know about, and it's very difficult to know when to step in, when to do something, when to say something, what to do, and some things that I do or have done may have caused a little bit of harm for some, but a benefit for others. And how do you weigh that too?
Well, the hard part is we're humans. I mean, not really the hard part, but being human, it's very hard to, you make a decision, you say something, it rolls back to what we, throughout these few questions. I mean, really, it's tough because there's an and or to a lot of these questions. There's a how do you and how do you or it. I mean, each of these situations can look totally different in each of our sphere of connection and people. The hardest part I face in ministry, and the hardest part I face here when I read this question myself, when you're talking about pandemic, you're talking about COVID-19, there's people within our sphere of churches that think that this is nuts. They think this, they think that. So in this crisis situation, are they doing more harm by throwing on Facebook, another doctor's decision saying that Fauci's wrong? What's going on? Like, so again, we're in this and or lacking. How do we, because again, doing no harm means I shouldn't go on Facebook and throw up if I'm, opinionated on this COVID-19 or what is going on. I should be edifying what I'm doing. So in glorifying God in all actions and all deeds and all words. And so to me, when I see right now, because we're facing the media saying one thing, the churches are saying another. Some of our denominations are going and pushing forward. Some of our denominations are saying, let's hold back. So again, there's this, I want to say it in learning times, trial times, and we're trying to seek the best. And I think what we have to do is go back to what God calls the Word. We have to go back to the Bible, back to what I call my basic instructions before leaving this earth. We have to go back because, again, through all this, these are, like you said, Deb, these are some tough questions to ask. And, what if I got a congregation member that threw out there that are something about the government, something about our president? How do I respond as a pastor and a leader to their conversation? Because to me, that's another tough point that I have, even in this state, is people, and their opinions. And I want to just sometimes want to rip them a new one and say, that's your opinion for a reason. Leave your opinion at the door. Don't put it out to the air, because once it's out, just like the toothpaste out. So
Pastor Eric and I were talking about that earlier. With so much on social media about the pandemic and everything, you have some that, like you said, are crazy on one side and crazy on the other side. And then, you or me, maybe I fall right in the middle and I'm not really sure what to believe. But then how do you fact check all of that? How do you really look and see what's real and what's not real? It's very difficult in today's day and age because we have so much availability to so much information. And how do you know what's right and what's not right?
And so many others' opinions.
That instant information that people take to be fact, which obviously has not been fact checked. And, unfortunately, I think everybody out there, is obviously biased one way or another in their, whether it's the media, whether it's, politician, whatever. I mean, everybody's biased one way or another, and they're going to skew their facts to fit their bias, so you get that, in all realms of stuff, not just the pandemic, and that's where trying to figure out where to balance and how to balance that information, and part of this question and talking about balance, and with what Deb just brought up a minute ago too, is balancing the do no harm with the do good. Well, what if I have to do harm to one individual in order to do good for another? And where does that balance come in? And how do you judge the do no harm from, well, if I don't do harm to this person, then this person's going to be harmed because of that, and how do you balance that, and how do you make those decisions on the right or wrong between what to do or not to do?
And that's going to come to play, Rob, too, and when we start opening back up our churches. Right now we have chosen to do the right thing. Most churches have chosen to do the right thing and not gather in large groups. But, hopefully the middle of May, by the end of May, we'll be able to do that again. But then how do you do only good when you have people who are immune compromised, who are elderly in your congregations, who still may be at risk of getting COVID-19, because it's not going to be gone in 3 weeks. It's still, hopefully it's way down, the cases are way down, but it's not going to be gone for a while yet. The weather's not warm enough to kill off viruses, and there's all these different things that have to come into play before there's a lowered risk. And so, how does that look in a church or in any kind of group setting when you're trying to begin to come back together in large groups? You're going to do harm to some to not do harm to the most, or it's difficult.
Yeah, Jen, that's a good one there, Jen.
So Jen on Facebook there made a comment. I think one of the hardest things with this pandemic is being bombarded with so much information and not knowing what is true or real. It's very stressful, and it puts a lot of fear in people. That's spot on, Jen.
Yes.
100%. That's the not understanding, not being able to know. And that's the problem is I honestly don't think that there's any of the information that's being put out there to us is 100% accurate. Now, whether it's out there intentionally false or not, that I don't think most of it's not intentionally false, but I think a lot of it is just people get a little bit of information and then they start throwing it out there without, and obviously with today's day and instant information, and wanting to be the first one out there with the story,
Right.
a lot of times it's not as well vetted as it probably should be. And, and what do you believe and what do you don't, and that's the thing.
Well, and that's where you got to tell the person, in my opinion, get off social media, get off the news. Just if you're one that feeds into either the left or the right, whatever direction you are, the best thing that you can do is say, hey, maybe take some time, like getting off of it, taking away from it. Because again, we have those fears, I mean, Dad, back to what you said about the whole, when we come back together as churches, what is it going to look like? How's it going to be? Well, we already know that there's going to be people that aren't going to come back for a while because they are the incomparable. They are worried. They are, and then you're going to get those other ones. Like first thing they're going to come back and they're going to want to give Pastor Eric the biggest hug in the world. Because they miss seeing Pastor, it's like, they're going to have those moments. So I think, when we're facing those, it's how do we think, do no harm. I mean, somebody's going to think we're going to harm them, and me, when I close something down and say we shouldn't do something, now I can't get this, I can't get that. I mean, even now roll past this, the church side, think about the kids and food, the meals that the parents have to now go and pick up and all that stuff. Like, when is the school going to say, hey, we hit the summertime, we've been given in our community, at least up here, they give, lunches out every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the kids. And, when's that going to stop? So then are they doing any harm, or when's the harm going to be to it trickles down, not just, it's all, all jobs, all, things. What, are people going to flock to the soda machine to return all their 7,000 bottles, soda bottles when, that they've all drank and, through this pandemic, I mean, are they going to slowly open? Sorry. There's so much about that it's
well,
the media tells us, everybody tells us how to do and what to do and how to do it. And what were you going to say, Eric or Rob?
The bombardment of information, and one of the things I find, especially when it comes to social media and individuals, is the respect for other people's beliefs or fears. It seems to me, at least, the vast majority of people, wherever they're at on the spectrum, they expect everybody else to understand and believe what they believe, or at least respect what they believe, but yet they don't respect other people's beliefs. I mean, personally, I'm on the side where, I think that we need to protect those that are the most vulnerable, but I think that we're going to far too of an extreme on what we're doing. I think that the people that are able-bodied, capable, healthy, not don't have underlying risk factors, and stuff, I think those people should be able to be going out and do what they need to do to continue with business and continue with life. We need to protect those that are vulnerable and stuff. And there's other people that believe we need to have this lockdown, and that's great. And to me, it's like I respect their beliefs, and I understand that, and I don't try to push my opinion and my beliefs on those people when it comes to that type of thing. Where when you get on social media, that seems to be all you get is people trying to cram down. Well, this is the way we need to do. We need to open the economy, or we need to be locked down, and it's like these arguments are out there, and people are just. It's like, you know what? Everybody's got a different opinion on where things should be and where they, and you're entitled to those opinions. I'm, and if you want to express those, hey, that's great. But don't try to literally jam them down other people's throats. I mean, respect the fact that other people have their opinions and their fears. I mean, and I respect those fears. It's completely understandable. I mean, and it's rightfully so that they have those fears.
That goes right. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
That goes right back to the do no harm. If you're trying to force somebody else to believe what you believe or do things the way you want them to do them, you're doing harm to that person just by forcing your beliefs on them.
Jen jumps in there. She's actually snoozed some of her friends for 30 days on Facebook because they don't want to delete the friends. Obviously, you don't want to totally turn your back on people, But yeah, sometimes it's just. I love that feature of snoozing people, Jen. I've done that.
I've done it in the last week, so
I've done it. I've done it more than my fair share of times too. Because they're like I said,
is that why you guys don't respond to my stuff anymore?
We were hoping there was no way for you to find out, but
that's the lack of respect sometimes, and I don't know if it has to do with the fear, and that's why people lack the. I don't think it's because it's usually not that. I don't know. It's all over the board, and I think that's one of the big downfalls of social media, and I think that's one of the big downfalls of everybody being kind of stuck indoor or stuck at home, and there's that many more people. That's that many more people on social media, and that's their only way to express things and whatnot. So I don't think that's helping any.
And I can't stress enough, like I said last week, and I've said it quite often. It's okay, I guess, to get on social media, especially when you're sitting around the house and you really have nothing else to do. But you need to be aware of the fact that, like Rob said, other people have other opinions than yours, and yours aren't the beat-all, top-notch opinion over everybody else's. We have to take in respect everybody else's circumstances are different. Everybody's in different situations than we all are. But when you do read something from somebody or whatever supposedly news feed that's on there, I don't know how many in the last couple of weeks because like I said, I was off in Facebook for Lent and when I got back on, all I'm seeing is stories being bombarded from all these different news feeds. And see, this is why we can't do this. This is why we should do that. This is why. But when I started researching them, and I probably debunked by like 50 stories so far, because these news stories are they're satire story news feeds. They're just throwing out just to get people to comment and and to like their page. So they're putting out false information. And that's the problem. People, and I tell people all the time, don't listen to your brother, don't listen to your sister, don't listen to your, as you get older, don't listen to your mom and dad too much, or your pastor, or your pastor until you've had the chance to actually research it yourself. See, that's the problem. We've become lazy in society where we don't feel we need to research things anymore. Everybody else has already done the research for us, so we can just agree with whatever they said, which we can't do. We need to research all that information we're seeing and make sure that what we're reading and what we're seeing before we start putting stuff out there, make sure it's accurate.
Yeah, and as you said, don't listen to your brothers and sisters and stuff. Apparently
families, friends, whoever, pastor. Don't listen to me.
Apparently, Carol here got some information from her son out of his fear from when she said she was going to go to Georgia to get her hair cut.
Can we carpool, Carol?
I'm well overdue for a haircut. And Morgan's trying to convince me that I should let her cut my hair. So
good luck with that.
I found some pictures on Facebook that showed people trying to do other people's hairs. I'll show them to you.
Going to Carol's comment, though, she didn't realize the fear her son had until she told him she was going to Georgia to get a haircut. That goes back to the whole everybody has opinions. Everybody has different things going on in their life. And some people are not scared at all, and I come in last week and I was in tears, and Pastor Eric happened to walk in. He often does when I'm having a bad day. And it was just a day where I let the fear get the better of me. I have a son that's immune compromised, and he lives alone, or not alone, but he lives on his own, has his own house. So I can't control what he's doing. I can't control how he's keeping himself safe and keeping those in his house safe so that they don't bring it into him. And I have a daughter who's a direct care worker in a foster care home, and she's 20 years old and she lives on her own. So I let the fear of not being able to control what my children were doing and keeping them safe get a hold of me. And it was a bad day because I was just, like Carol's son. I thought, oh my gosh, what if they don't do what I tell them? And they're mad at me because I tell them all the time, use your hand sanitizer, wear gloves. I'm always harping on them with these things. And it's very, very difficult to not let those fears get to you. It was David's ponytail, Carol said. want to see pictures of Dave with a ponytail, Carol.
Like I said, on Facebook, I shared my message of the emoji with the bun, because that's what I told my beautician. If I don't get to come see her soon, this is what my emoji is going to have to look like. So,
yeah. Shall we go on to confronting the news with scripture and hope? We have about 15 minutes left if we're going to stick to our hour.
We probably should at least get into some of it.
All right. Leviticus 19:2, verse 2 and 11 through 14. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. You shall not steal, you shall not deal falsely, and you shall not lie to one another, and you shall not swear falsely by my name, profaning the name of your God. I am the Lord. You shall not defraud your neighbor, you shall not steal, and you shall not keep for yourself the wages of a laborer until morning. You shall not revile the deaf or put a stumbling block before the blind. You shall fear your God. I am the Lord. The commands in Leviticus 19 are part of the holiness code of ancient Israel. At the beginning of the chapter, God commands the people to be holy as he is holy, and then God goes on to spell out some of what being holy means. And a good bit of it fits into the category of doing no harm. Do not steal, do not deal falsely, do not lie, do not defraud your workers, do not create problems for the handicapped, do not render false judgments, do not slander, do not take vengeance. It's not all doing harm, of course, and in verses 9 and 10, God commands some good that they should do. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the very edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall not strip your vineyard bare, or gather the fallen grapes of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the alien. I am the Lord your God. Leviticus 19 is also where the statements about loving one's neighbor as oneself first appears in verse 18. A statement that was one of the two great commandments Jesus affirmed in Matthew 22:36 through 40. That's a command to do good. But in the Leviticus context, part of loving your neighbor is doing them no harm. Question. If part of loving your neighbors is doing them no harm, what are some ways we can best do them no harm in these days of the pandemic? Ooh, that's a big topic in our house sometimes because some people don't want to wear the mask. And the mask that I wear protects you, and the mask that you wear protects me, not the other way around. So how do you do no harm in a pandemic when you don't want to wear a mask? Or any of the other things that we have to do, you know?
Well, you got some of your people that won't leave their house at all.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe a case of an elderly who will not leave their house, but they need food. Something I can do is I can go out to the store, pick up their food, set it on their front porch, and I can leave and say, hey, I delivered your food for you. Here you go. And, it's in the box. It's there. It's that. Because, if they don't want to get out, how do you help your neighbor there? I hate to say we're not going to tell everybody to wear a mask and gloves, and we're not going to be able to. And not all of us wear them in every location that we go to. I'm guilty of that. If I have to run to the gas station real quick, I don't wear it. I don't wear it. But if I go to a big box store, so our family, so that we can help our neighbors in that too, and help the people in my mind, is simply also just ordering our groceries online, going to Walmart, sitting in, they drop them in. So number one, you're helping a neighbor because that person that's still there, I'm assuming they got to wear their mask and they're able to get the groceries for us. They drop it off and we go. We sent letters to our church members, just loving on them in this point in time because you know what, I'd like to go see them and connect, but we can't. Or we're asked not to, because let's be honest, a lot of our people are still doing what they want to do without, adhering to the social distancing and all that, because you got people that they're just not going to listen. They're rebel rousers. We have those in our life around us and they're in our families. But I think the other thing is a lot of these families don't know what's going to take place, or the people like, I want to do the best I can because I don't want you to get a sickness. I don't want, until it hits you in your home that somebody has gotten sick from something, then you take a little bit different look at it and saying, okay, maybe I need to wear my mask. Maybe I need to, but I think a lot of it is loving our neighbor in this time is the social distancing hugs, the social distancing, sending letters, the encouragements. But but it's tough because I'm not that type of person. I like to see a high five, give you hugs. Not those masks are strict. You name it. I don't want to do all that stuff. But if I need to lead by example as a leader, as a pastor, I need to do the best that I can do as a leader and say, hey, I need to wear it. I need to do it, even though it doesn't feel good. It doesn't look good. I'm going to the bank and I don't want them to think I'm robbing them. So that's where I look at this aspect of the question of doing no harm.
I actually find it interesting there's some states that have state laws that it's a violation to be wearing a mask and disguising yourself in public. And yet they've got orders out to wear masks. And
is Michigan one of those, Rob?
Michigan's law, the way it's written for masks, is if you're wearing a mask as part of a commission of a crime, then that adds an additional crime onto that. But there are other states that have laws that are just, generally banning masks, and then they've got executive orders that say wear masks. So it's kind of interesting how people's beliefs change based on something like this situation that we're dealing with.
Yeah. And what's going on.
Laws and things like that.
I shared in my bad sense of humor the other day, somebody made a comment about masks and robbers. And I made the comment, I said, yeah, this has got to be difficult for robbers, because when they're walking into a store and everybody's walking in with masks also, are they trying to rob the store as well? And there's people walking out that are wearing masks. Did they already rob it? And there's any money left for me? I mean, so this got to be difficult for those guys. Like I said, my bad sense of humor, but it's just some of the humor that I know me. Like I said, I don't know. Like I said, Corey, it doesn't look good, so I don't want to do it. I have one. I carry it in my pocket, but I don't ever put it on. Unfortunately, a lot of times I walk into a store not even thinking about it, not even realizing it. Until I see somebody, and then it's like, oh, do I hurt and pull it out and put it on real quick, or I just keep going because nobody said anything to me. But yeah, no, I like doing the no harm. You want to try to not, like Corey said, we want to try to be the leaders and try to show that it's not a big deal to take an extra precaution, an extra step at this time, until we're for sure.
Pastor Corey said one of the ways that he can do good is drop off groceries to a neighbor. Do we have any other suggestions or any other examples of doing good? I know that we've had people that have been calling their friends and checking up on their friends, and I've dropped off a few things different places too, but that's kind of similar to the groceries.
I think even just calling people and checking in on them and talking to them and making sure that, their minds are in the right places and they're doing okay and they're not struggling with things, because a lot of times I think people that struggle with things try to bottle it up, keep it inside. They don't want to bother other people and that type of stuff. So I think that effort of actually going forward and calling people and checking on them and having those discussions and stuff can help ease some anxiety that some people have that they don't want to bother other people with.
I know for our congregation, that's a big thing, calling each other and checking on each other, because we have an aging congregation like most congregations do. But I got a card in the mail today when I went home to let my dogs out. And this person said to me, I sent her some stuff in the mail the other day, and she doesn't have internet. She can't watch our videos, doesn't want to try to get internet, things like that. And I sent her some information, Pastor Eric's messages in the upper room. And she told me in that card today that she has not left her house since March 1st. And she lives in an apartment complex. So she has not left her tiny apartment other than to get her mail on the bottom floor and to take her trash out since March 1st. That's almost 60 days. Because she's an older person that could easily get very, very sick from this. And she said that she's kind of starving for her relatives and for company. And because she doesn't do video chats and things like this, she's having a harder time dealing with it than some people maybe, because there are some of us that have been doing, my sister-in-law called us the other day and we played bingo, or she wanted us to play bingo over the phone and, things like that. But there are people, especially the aging people, who are not as adept with the computer and the video stuff as the others. So it's very, very, very important that we continue to reach out to those people.
Well, like you said, calling people, taking stuff to them if they need to, going to the grocery store for them. Deb, you were telling me the other day that you and your daughter and your mom were doing video chatting, and your mom's like, we should do this more often. So
Yeah.
it is introducing some of our older congregations to that style and the convenience and the fun of it. It is kind of a novelty fun, and probably right now because of the fact we can't really get out and see each other. Just reaching out. Yeah. Just reaching out to them, letting them know that you're there for them is probably one of the best things that we can do for people right now.
Yeah. I seen a cartoon out there where it talked about, the social distancing and technology, and like, oh yay, a Zoom meeting. And then they're doing this. And then it's like each picture progressively. Next thing you know, it's like, oh, please stop. I don't want to do another conference call. And
there's people struggling from Zoom fatigue, they're calling it. I just watched the news this morning and they were talking about it. Zoom fatigue.
Oh, that's funny. I think that we should skip the next scripture and go on to the Luke 6:31 one if anybody wants to read that.
All right.
We have a comment from, what is it? I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. Shraganesh Mahanti. When will the corona stop? That's a good question. We are all asking that question, my friend. Hoping someday that it does come to an end, that we figure out something to take care of it, and we can go back to a new norm, but normal is as best we can.
Yeah, I don't think there'll ever be a true like end, we're done with it type thing, but it'd be nice to have it under control where we can manage it and get back to normal lives the best we can. All right. So Luke 6:31, do to others as you would have them do to you. These are the words of Jesus, commonly referred to as the golden rule. As it stands, it encourages positive action toward others. But if stated in the flip side version, it would be do to others as you wouldn't, or don't do to others as you wouldn't have them do to you. In the form, this is the first do no harm command, but still in keeping with the intention of the golden rule. Often, to behave as followers of Jesus in our interactions with others, we need to apply both the positive statement of the command as well as the flip side. First, do no harm to the other person, and second, do what is helpful. Martin Luther, in his small catechism, does this with each of the commandments. For example, the commandment, you shall not murder, meaning that we should fear and love God so that we do not hurt or harm our neighbor in his body, but help and support him in every physical need. There is a parallel to this medicine as well as this quote from Harrison's Principles of Internal Medicine indicates. The goal of cancer treatment is first to eradicate the cancer. The dictum, first do no harm, is not necessarily the guiding principle of cancer therapy. When a cure of cancer is possible, cancer treatments may be undertaken despite the certainty of severe and perhaps life-threatening toxicities. Every cancer treatment has the potential to cause harm, and treatment may be given that produces toxicity with no benefit. Most treatments are given to the point of toxicity, irrespective of the clinical scenario. The guiding principle of cancer treatment should be first, hasten to help. Question here, when in your interactions with others should first do no harm be overridden by first hasten to help? Can you think of a circumstance in your experience where more harm was done by doing than might have occurred by not doing?
Yeah. And it's speaking with law enforcement friends of mine, talking about basically this kind of thing. And one of the things that they're being told is they're not getting out to as many calls. They're taking more calls over the phone and taking reports over the phone. And the only way they're really going out to two places is when there's a situation of somebody getting hurt that seems potentially dangerous. They're there immediately. Now, how many stations or departments are doing that in Cross, I'm not sure, but that's the same with us. I mean, if you're sitting on your porch and you see a neighbor, struggling to, pick up 2 bags and carry 2 bags of groceries in the house, do you run over and grab the other bag and help carry in the bag for them? Or if you see them fall down, then you run over and grab and help them get up to make sure that they're okay and not hurt. So I guess you got to kind of weigh the situation as far as in what's going to cause harm and what's not, and where do you jump in and
I had a discussion just like this with a fellow instructor friend of mine when we talked about like the gentleman's code. Holding the door open for a lady or somebody drops something and you pick that up for them to help them out. And, those things that normally are part of ingrained in what I do, if I'm standing there, somebody drops something. I mean, I reactively just go to pick it up to hand it to them. Well, nowadays that could be looked upon as, potentially causing harm because now I've touched that person's, belongings or whatever, and are handing it to them. We're having that contact and those types of things and stuff. So it really is almost a struggle sometimes to like stop myself from doing something that I feel is right and feel that it, is proper for me to do because it may be looked at in a different light now because of this, the disease that's going around and stuff. And it's, where do you balance that,
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard. It's hard. I mean, my son and I are walking. My son, 4 years old, walking. My son, Eric, knows has heard and has connected and talked. My boy is energetic. My boy wants to be around people. He's very, so this time right now for him, he's having some social breakdowns, we'll call it, if that's the word I want to use. And so we went and walked, there's a nature trail here in Midland that we went for a walk on, and he's doing great, but so his social awkwardness for him is every time somebody goes by, he says hi. A couple of weeks ago, we were just for Easter, we were walking to the bike trail here in Midland, and everybody going by, he said happy Easter. That's how he felt his joy for himself. But for the concept as we're talking about too, is as we were walking yesterday at that the other day, at the nature center trail, a family's trying to take a selfie, picture of their family, and I kind of walk by and says, well, I take a picture, I take your phone and take a picture for you, but we're in this stage right now that we gotta there's fear in us that I'm gonna touch your phone, and because I touch your phone, then what's gonna happen? So I said we're in this newness, this new norm, and what does it look like in a way of not doing that harm? Because I could harm by touch. Am I a carrier and I just don't know it? Am I all these fears that flog us because we can't do the help, or we can't do what our norm used to be, and we. So then we start to, are we going to, it's so weird. It's a weird state that we're all in, and the unknowns that we really don't know the true answer. We don't know, but we know the true hope, and that is in Jesus Christ.
My question really is when it comes to this type of thing, this, the not picking things up for people, not, helping somebody take a photo of their family and those types of things. How many of those types of things are going to continue to carry forward and indefinitely? Is there, what, I guess, what is the new norm going to be? And, we talked about this last week, that everlasting present, because it's hard to even really look forward into the future, whether it's to try to plan or try to, envision what the future is going to look like, because there's so much uncertainty out there.
Well, it's like churches. I mean, you read articles. I know, Eric, if you've read them, I've read several articles that talk about my brain is fried here. And Eric sent me a text message. My kid's probably on the internet. Anyway, but with churches starting back up, like, do we have greeters at the door? And if we do, is it somebody just holding the door? And are we printing bulletins? I mean, you're starting to hear that even trickling into churches. Do you pass the offering plate? It's
It's stuff we're going to discuss tomorrow, we hope. The question that is there is, when do you help first before you do no harm? So, in the time of this pandemic, not opening doors, not picking things up, not taking the selfie, those aren't things that are, those are things that could do harm. So when do we override that do no harm to help? I think Pastor Eric kind of hit it on the head when he said, if the neighbor's just trying to carry in a couple bags of groceries and they're kind of struggling with that, maybe in this time of pandemic, we don't do things like that or don't pick things up. But if they fall to the ground, of course, you're going to go and you're going to do, what you need to do to help them first. Or the person who sent me the note that said she has been in the house for a month. If she wasn't able to get her grocery, or 2 months, she wasn't able to get her groceries, didn't have somebody doing it, I would go buy her groceries and maybe put that non-carrier germ that I might be having or carrier germ that I might have on the grocery bags because she needs to eat. And those are times where the helping needs to override the harm that could be done, or in the form of that they use cancer treatment. A lot of people right now can't get cancer treatments. When do we start fighting back against those kinds of things? They're not giving people surgeries that they actually really need because they're not necessarily life-saving for today, but they're life-saving for in the future, and they need those surgeries and they can't get them. And they're there's so many things. When do we start fighting back against some of this where we need to help, and even if it is going to cause a little bit of harm for some?
Yeah.
So we are at 2 minutes or it's 2:08. So we're 8 minutes over. I can't talk today either now.
Only 6 because we started 2 minutes later.
Okay. Carol Dow said her comment, and I can't put it up because Rob's not there right this minute. Carol says, ask first. May I help you? And that, I think that might be like what Rob was talking about. I think that may become our new normal, not just reach down and do it, or take the phone and ask first. Are you willing to let me do this? And that way we're getting their permission to possibly give them something if we have it and don't know it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is tough because I am too. I do the same thing. I've always want to just jump right in and help, and it makes it tougher. We got to now take that next step, that step first. I'm sorry, that first step of, do you mind me helping you? Is it okay if I help you? Would you like to see my medical report before I help you with your groceries? Type deal moments, So I mean, that's like I said, that's part of the new norm that we're going to end up having to get used to. That we've stepping away from the way we were accustomed to doing things.
Yeah, having to step back and think about it first. Make sure that it's appropriate, I guess, under the new standards of what's appropriate and what's not. So, and asking, hey, do you want a hand? With that type thing. So let them make the decision. If you're willing to help them and take that risk, of potential harm, ask them if they're willing to do the same. If they want to take the risk in order to receive the help, then by all means, then.
You hear all the time people who are introverts who need that space. They need those boundaries. They don't want people to invade their space. Those of us like me, who is a social butterfly, which it sounds like most of us are, we have to learn those new boundaries as well. There's a boundaries of space around everyone from this point moving forward that we're going to have to all contend with and to learn to adapt to.
Absolutely.
So we didn't make it quite as far this week as we did last week. I hope that everybody watching feels for me because I have 3 very talkative men that I have been having to try to control. No, I'm kidding. You guys did a good job. I appreciate all of you.
I was trying to be reserved.
Yeah, you guys you did good. So we'll be back again Monday again, right, Rob? I think, unless somebody has other questions or comments they want to let us talk about.
We're gonna go ahead and we'll close out with a prayer. But do remember, Next week we'll be doing this again at 1:00 Eastern Standard Time. Elizabeth was supposed to join us this week, and unfortunately she forgot that there was a time zone difference between where she's at and us. So, but we will be back again next week at 1:00 for the next.
So 12 o'clock for you, Lizzie.
So, yep, and we'll try to make sure we get that posted at least a couple of days ahead of time with the information about what we're going to be discussing, so you guys can come prepared and whatnot. So, and join us. We'd be happy to have you guys come on, and you can comment right on our Facebook feed, and we can involve you in the discussion. So thank you guys very much. And I'm going to put him on the spot since he is our guest this week and stuff. But we're going to have Pastor Corey go ahead and close us out with a prayer.
All right, thanks. Well, let us all pray. Lord, I come before you. We come before you in this time. It's unknown as we've been discussing the understanding of the pandemic and do no harm and what that looks like. And Lord, I pray that we strive to do no harm in all that we're doing, that we can glorify you, Lord. As people see us, they can see you shining through. They don't see me, they see you, Lord. So Lord, I ask that right now, if there's anybody that's been watching or have more questions, feel free, Lord, to give them the words to say to each one of us or to somebody on this feed here, Lord. We just pray right now that you can, be in the hearts of all those that have been listening, but be in the hearts of all of us as we are trying to do the work you call us to do, and that's to be Christ's followers. And that's to live in harmony and to do no harm. But Lord, I just thank you for today and the opportunity we have, even with this technology, to come to your screen, wherever that may be. If you're laying in your bed, or you're sitting at your TV, or you're sitting at your desk eating a donut and drinking coffee, Lord, we just are gracious that we're able to come to you and in your needs and meet your needs in the places where you're at, Lord. We just thank you for today and the time. And Lord, I thank you that New Age United Methodist Church allowed me to come on and be a guest with their Wired Word this Monday, and I thank you for them. And I'm praying for their church as you are working through the things that they're coming up to talk about, with social distancing, with bulletins, to greeters, to all that's in front of us, Lord. We all as church are facing that, Lord. I ask that you just guide us, give us the words, give us the direction, give us all to glorify you in each and every day. Again, we thank you in your blessed name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you guys
Amen.
very much.
Thank you.